Jung makes the point that it's when we're the most ignorant of ourselves that we develop the most enthusiasm for throwing ourselves, as if it's our great vocation, into pedagogy or the teaching of the young. So I'm absolutely ignorant, psychologically speaking or spiritually speaking, whatever way you want to say it. And this gives me this huge urge to go and teach people, tell them how to be, tell them what to be, tell them stuff. And this isn't some kind of curious oddity. It makes sense that we would do this because it's an excellent way to distract ourselves from our inner ignorance, to take up the role of teacher and throw ourselves into telling other people or telling children how it is, because then we see the evidence in front of our very eyes. Here I am. I'm a teacher. I'm teaching. I'm imparting knowledge, imparting education. So that very nicely compensates for the complementary feeling, which is the feeling on the inside that we deny, which is that we are frighteningly ignorant of ourselves. So that feeling, because it is frightening, has to be compensated for and turned into its opposite, so that within the theatrical realm of society we can take up the mantle of somebody who isn't frighteningly ignorant of themselves. So that's all by the by. But I do think that the same thing applies to healthcare, mental health care specifically, and that somehow there's this thing that happens that we feel this intense urge to work in the field of mental health and tell other people about mental health because we are frighteningly ignorant of what that entails ourselves, which is it's a hard idea to get across, particularly if you're trying to get it across to mental health workers. It's a difficult idea to express in such a way that people can see the sense in it and go, yeah, that kind of could be true, kind of could make sense. There's something in that for sure. That's a very hard thing to do. But nevertheless, we can still make that point. And exactly the same applies, as I just said, in the case of education. A teacher or an educated person in general, a lecturer or whatever, they're covered in the accreditations of knowledge. They're scholars, they're this, they're that. And because they've jumped through all the appropriate hoops, we're content to afford them this status. We kind of like our experts, so as long as they, pass the exams and do the kind of stuff they're supposed to do, we're more than happy to have them there. And we're also more than happy not to particularly question their experthood. So, as with a teacher, if I'm a mental health worker, I learn lots of stuff, I learn lots of lingo, I learn etc. I learn all the stuff and I can come out with it and we all agree, yes, this is kind of mental health stuff, this is therapy stuff. So straight away we've colluded, we've made a kind of we've created a consensus reality, and as long as I adhere to the internal logic of that collusion, I am considered by all and sundry to be practicing my profession well. But the only thing about this is that the collusion which I am part of and the kind of knowledge and terminology that I have immersed myself in has nothing whatsoever to do with mental health. It couldn't be further away. It really, really has nothing at all to do with mental health. And similarly, we can say that when society, or when our culture responds to those of us who have got mental health difficulties, it responds by, like a big brother. I don't mean a Orwellian big brother, I mean just like a big friendly brother would say, hey, well, let me give you some mental health advice, how to mind your mental health. And our culture does that, our society does that. It'll give us all this. Well, it claims to anyway, it says that it does. But in actual fact, there's nothing that this entity, which is society, and it is an entity, it's not a collection of individuals, it's an agreed upon system of ideas and representations that no one really believes in, but we all agree to act as if we did believe in it for the sake of convenience, for the sake of functionality. And that's absolutely the way it has to be with any group. We all have to agree on basic rules, that a group isn't going to be a group otherwise. But what happens in this case is that that entity, whether we call it our collective, our culture, the group of people of whom we are a member, has no understanding at all of mental health, and can't do, because mental health does not pertain to a set of agreed upon values. It doesn't pertain to any system, any set of ideas, any formal structures that we can write down, put in a book, teach, talk about. Because mental health belongs to another realm from that. The mental health belongs to one realm, which is a more immediate realm, the most immediate realm there is, and all of that stuff, the stuff we agree upon, our ideas, our thoughts, which is what we create society out of and our culture out of, exists in another realm. It exists in the realm of abstract representations, which aren't real things. They're kind of static things that exist outside of reality. They're abstractions. They're abstracted from reality, which means they aren't reality. Reality itself is tricky because it doesn't have any fixed structure to it. It doesn't have anything that we can describe. It doesn't have any handles on it. It's got no angles in it that we can kind of work out what the angle is and then work on that particular angle. It doesn't. We can think of reality. We can't think of reality, obviously, but we could kind of, in a manner of speaking, think about reality by saying that it's something we can't get any purchase on. No matter what we think it is, it goes on to prove that it isn't. It wasn't that. So we could think of it as a type of thing where you're trying to catch and we're devising traps the whole time. But every time we try and trap it, it's not in the trap. So we design another trap and another trap. We can never catch or trap or pin down reality, and that's the only way we can talk about it, really. It is beyond any system that we can create. And that's all we can say about it. In practice, what we do is we develop some kind of system, some kind of trap, and then we pretend that reality is in it, because kind of we know we're never going to be able to get the real thing. We don't really know it, of course, but maybe in some way we know it. I don't know. But in some kind of a fashion, we recognize that reality itself will always fly the coop. So it becomes a matter of convenience to design a system or to design a trap and then say, we've caught it. Reality's in there. It's in that trap. So it's kind of like we've got this box and we've shut it, slammed it, We've said, now I've got you. Reality, you're in that box. And we padlock it. Then we throw a couple chains around it and padlock the chains. And we say, aha, reality's in that box. And that's what we always do. That's what we inevitably do. We can't be bothered kind of updating and revising and letting go of all of our theories and perceptions and conceptions of the world the whole time. It's just too much for us. So we stick. We say, I'm sticking here. This is it. And we get bolshy about it, and we get aggressive if anyone says this isn't it. And that's human history in a nutshell. So then we got this box, and we're saying, aha, reality's in it. I keep pointing to the box. And that gives us a mandate for whatever kind of crap we want to do. Reality's in the box. It's like the church, and they've got a box, and they say, God's in this box. And that gives them a mandate to do their stuff that they have been doing for the last 2,000 years. Because we all thinking of God. God's in that box. The box of dogma, the dogmatic box. But he isn't. Or she isn't, if God is a feminine principle. Or he, she isn't, if God is a hermaphroditic principle, which seems closer to the mark, really. A wholer representation of reality. But no way, God isn't in that box. There's nothing in the box, it's empty. Bit of dust in it, a couple old spider webs. Quite possibly a few dead woodlice, maybe. But that's it, not God. There's no God in that box. So this whole 2,000 year charade that's been going on is empty. It's not based on anything. It's based on the dogma, which is only worth a damn because the dogma is supposed to relate to the divine truth of God. Because what good would a dogma be to anyone if it had no earthly relation to the truth? So then we say, here is this cumbersome, wretched, tedious, dreadful old dogma that we keep on having to trot out time and time again. And oh, we're so sick of hearing it. Not another. I don't want to hear it another time. It's awful. But it's got no relation to the truth either. It's got no justification. So in that case, we're going to think, what the hell? I'm not going to listen to this rubbish. Throw it out. But the whole point that I'm trying to make is that we don't say that. We don't say that our dogma has no relation to the truth. We say that it is absolutely very representative of the truth. I mean, can you imagine the hierarchy of the church coming out and saying, well, it's only a dogma. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't relate to anything. It's just a structure, an arbitrary structure with no relationship to any underlying truth. I mean, that's what dogma is. The only thing that keeps dogma being, alive is the fact that we enforce it and we insist on people on believing it, and we tell them how terrible it is not to believe. That's the only reason it carries on, out of pure aggression and violence on our part. If we didn't do that, it's, as I say, no one would have the slightest interest in it because it's dead. It's completely lacking in anything. It's dreadful stuff. Can't do nothing with dogma. You can't warm your heart with dogma. You can't feel good with dogma. It has no life-giving or health-giving properties whatsoever. So in the same way, we have this view of reality. Society has this view of reality, which now we consider ourselves to be one step ahead of the ancients because it's supposedly scientific, and our healthcare protocols are supposedly scientific. But the same thing applies. Just as dogma can't capture or contain the truth, as Jung kept on saying, and this is a key thing in alchemy, truth or reality being personified by Mercurius, who we, in our cumbersome, heavy-handed way, cannot catch. He's one step ahead of us the whole time. He's always where we don't expect him to be. And so our attempts to catch him, it's, as I think Jung says, it's like, maybe it's someone else who says this, it's like, maybe it's Alan Watts, it's like being in a police force, but you're going to arrest a burglar, but you insist on beating drums wherever you go and blazing the sirens and letting the whole world know that here we come, the police are coming, and so the burglar's going to be long gone. And because we're announcing ourselves in this way, because we're beating drums the whole time, making a big show, we can never catch that burglar. And in the same way, we can't catch Mercurius. But that's okay, because it wouldn't benefit anything for us to. The catching of Mercurius would not be a good act anyway. It would be just like killing reality, turning reality into a hyper-reality, a dead thing. So why would we even want to? And the reason we'd want to is convenience, because as I've said, it's challenging and demanding to relate to a reality that is always new, always unique. We always have to be awake. We can't ever think, I got it, yeah, I got it, and doze off, which is what we want to do. We'd love to doze off. I said, yeah, I got it, yeah, okay. But reality isn't like that. All you can ever do is pay absolute attention to it, and you'll never get it, but you can pay attention to it so you can be with it. You can relate to it, but only in the sense that you're continuously letting go of whatever idea you might have had about it. And continuous letting go is, psychologically speaking, hard work. Letting go is hard work. We're letting go of the security of what we think we know. And everything in psychology is driven by a need for security. So letting go of that security on a continuous basis is the ultimate in hard work, psychologically speaking. So of course we don't want to be bothered with this business of relating to reality. And so this is true for science. If science degenerates and becomes no more than a way of apparently nailing down reality, which in a lot of people's minds is what it's supposed to do, then science has degenerated into a cage, supposedly to catch reality. Reality is long since gone, but then we're going to be worshipping the cage, like ways guys who are worshipping the teapot instead of drinking the tea. Missing the point big time. And that's what we do. We worship the cage. True science is ironic, as John Horgan says. It's ironic because it's not really trying to say, it's like your man Magritte in the pipe. It's like, say, this is not a pipe. No matter what we say, it's like, oh, this is not that, really. Because the only things that are what we say they are abstractions. That's the great thing about abstractions. I say it's a this, it's a this. It's not a multivalent metaphor. It's not a manifestation of some deeper reality. It merely is what I say it is. That's it. Which means it's dead. It's worthless. Whatever I say is just a dumb idea anyway. There's no meat in it. There's no juice in it. There's no surprise factor in it. There's no uniqueness in it. There's no information in it. Information is what surprises us and wakes us up. Literal statements don't wake us up. They always confirm what we thought we knew anyway. So true science shows us the limits of what we can know instead of claiming to explain everything. And this is definitely something that the first-rank scientists would say, and they have said. If you look at what the very first quantum theorists used to say, they talked in terms of wonder and awe. It's as if something is being hinted at that is beyond their understanding and always will be, which is the attitude of a first-rank scientist. It's a third-rank scientist who thinks he has caught reality in the cage. Because a cage is, as I keep on saying, and I apologize for being so tedious, a cage is made out of abstract representations. Abstractions are not reality. They do not describe reality. They're an infinitely degraded form of reality. They're reality after a huge information loss, and then we end up with this kind of cinder, this kind of inert thing, and we say, yeah, this is it. But it isn't. That's the remnants of reality after it suffered a information loss, after it has been a information collapse, a fall. Then we end up with a fixed, with the certainties, the yes and no certainties of which we are so fond. When everything is collapsed, when the state of being, which is all possibilities superimposed, with no one saying it's this and not the rest, they're just all there, quite happily, all superimposed, and there's no digital way of representing that. It doesn't translate into digital yes no's, no matter how subtly you try to be. You can't translate the non-local state or the state of original symmetry into digital, because digital means asymmetry. There's a difference between yes and no, so we claim, and we build a whole world on that supposed difference. In the symmetrical state, there's no difference between yes and no. Yes is no. The difference between up and down, there's no difference between all of these opposites. All the opposites are revealed as being the very same thing. And that very same thing is a reality we can't describe, because we can only describe reality in terms of opposites which don't exist. They don't exist in the original article. They only exist in our degraded representations of the original article. So in mental health, we find ourselves in this situation where we're trying to get scientific about mental health without realizing that the essence of who we are is not some mere mechanical affair like an internal combustion engine that we can kind of say, okay, here's the list of faults, now go and fix them. But the essence of who we are is inseparable from the essence of reality. So everything I've just said about reality holds good for the essence of who we are, i.e., it is not a system, it's not a structure, it's not a set of abstract representations. How can we be a set of abstract representations, or a set of abstractions from the original, from the whole? Admittedly, we do act as if we are, but if we were to dwell upon it in any kind of philosophical way, we would say, am I the original, or am I the third-hand, fourth-hand copy, a copy of a copy which itself was not a good copy anyway, etc., 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 forever and ever? Or am I the original? Am I more than that? And this is what the philosophers of old urged us to consider. Society gives us this crappy version of ourselves, and we are urged to consider, is this really who I am? So just as the philosophers of old were urging us to do this, so should we in the 21st century within this realm of mental health. We should be supporting and encouraging this type of inquiry. Is this really who you are? But because we're working for society, on behalf of society, serving society's needs, we don't. We try to confirm to people that yes, this poor copy of the original is who you are. So go back to it and see if you can just function on that basis and be content, which of course we can't. That is our divine discontent, that we can't be happy just to be the inferior copy. Okay, thanks for watching.